Hey guys, it's Nino. I'm sorry for the grainy quality. I'm using my tablet today. Um, I wanted to talk about Tuesday and all of the implications, but not from our perspective, right? Obviously, as real progressives, we were very much about the only progressive candidate on the ticket. And, that's very much what I am all about. At the same time, I work in a urban high school in the Bronx, and most of my students are Black or Hispanic, um, and some of them are undocumented immigrants. Some of them have parents who are undocumented immigrants. So after Tuesday, it was tough to go into school and talk to them. I had a rough time. As for me personally, I'm Hispanic. My family is immigrants. My parents came over. So it wasn't when I was thinking before the election and everything, I was thinking about like it's not going to affect me, my family. I can if it does, because it might affect some of my family members. If it does, it's my family. Like I know what I'm risking. Um, and so it was tough going into the school where not only what was I willing to risk what for me and for my family, it was tough going in to face their judgment. Um, I can face any adult telling me that it was a spoiler vote or it was a protest vote. Um, Honestly, here's my view. Um, the protest vote was protesting against racism and voting for Hillary. The protest vote was protesting against corporate greed and voting for Trump. My vote wasn't a protest vote. In fact, it was probably one of the few non-protest votes. It was probably one of the few votes based on the issues that I actually care about. It was probably one of the few not based out of fear. I didn't protest. That being said, when I walked in on Wednesday to see my juniors, um, asking, what's gonna happen. I had a senior this morning demanding to know who I voted for, right? And because they're students, I try not to have that conversation. Um, and it's tough because I don't want to lie to them and I don't want to not answer them. So I found myself talking to the juniors when they asked, and they were like, are you disappointed? Were you pro Hillary? And I was like, nope. And they're like, oh, you were pro Trump? And I said, nope. And they're like, what? Are you pro Obama? And I was like, nope. And so I had to catch myself and be like, I'm pro democracy. So, that was one interaction. And then today I had, like I said, a senior who was like, all those people who voted third party, like, they fucked us up. And I caught myself and I said, and I looked at her and I was like, take a look at the numbers again. Just, I know you're upset, and I know this is hard, but take a look at the numbers again. We're in New York right now. It wasn't us. She was like, well, Florida, fucking Florida. It has to, like, we need to let it leave. And, that's a different kind of conversation. Luckily, my co-teacher is the government teacher. And she also voted third party and had a very real conversation with them. And I say luckily because with the seniors, it was much more real, right? Like, I couldn't even rein them in to have my usual conversation about colleges because they were so busy talking about the implications. My students were like, my family's about to leave. Like, my family has already bought plane tickets. Like, nobody's staying. We're so scared. This is too real. And I had another student go, I voted, and I voted Democrat down the line. And I couldn't help myself. I went, and she was like, what? And I said, that just hurt me, like, right now. And she goes, what do you mean, miss? Like, she was the better candidate. And I was like, okay, if you believe that, fine. But what do you know about the other candidates that you just talked about voting for? I don't know, they're better, right? Because they're Democrats. And I was like, listen, if you voted down the line because you researched them, because you thought they were best, fine. But don't vote down the line. Please don't ever just vote down the line. Like, learn about the candidates. Be invested. And she was like, miss, that's a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, it's a lot of work. And when you don't do that work, this is what happens. I'm not telling you that, like, I was talking to her, and I remember I told her, like, I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'd never in a million years do that. But I am telling you that if you're not informed, we lose. Right? Like, it's just true. And to my students, some of them, the younger ones, think it's funny. They're like, I'm pro-Trump. Okay. Good for you. The other ones are like, how the hell can you do that? Like, who the fuck? Like, why are you talking to this kid? And I'm like, okay, like, I hear you. I talk a lot about humanity, and I talk a lot about, understanding each other's perspectives. And it's because, honestly, no matter who wins or no matter who's voted for, it's my kids that are affected. Right? Like, I teach them, I know what they're going through, and as I'm applying to colleges with them, I have intimate details about their family lives, right? I need to have their tax information. I need to tell them, like, I need to look them in the eye and be like, I know this person raised you your entire life, but they're not your parent, and so you can't use those taxes. Or I know your dad doesn't want to even look at your face, but we have to figure out how to get his taxes because otherwise you can't go to college. And as we're talking about college, and today just so happened to be talking about the FAFSA and financial aid, I'm talking about it, and one of the girls, she goes, see, if Hillary was elected, this wouldn't be an issue. And I looked at her and I was like, that's not even a stance Hillary had. And I couldn't stop myself. And she was like, yes, it is. I read it. And I saw it on CNN. And I looked at my co-teacher, and I, couldn't help myself. And I was like, so then it must be true, I guess. And I was like, please just handle it. I can't, I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to have that level of conversation. Because I can fight with my friends, and I can fight with a stranger, and I can fight with my family. But I'm not fighting my kids. It's not political. I'm there to teach them. And I'm not there to tell them who is better, and I'm not there to tell them what to do. I'm just there to give them all of the information so that they make a choice. Listen, even during the primaries, okay, I would see videos about people posting with their kids, like, even my kids for Bernie, with a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. And I'm sorry that if this offends anybody, and I'm sorry if you don't like what I'm about to say, but that's indoctrination to me. It just is. If your kid isn't old enough to understand the facts, and you paint them in such a way that paints one person badly and lifts another person up so that they think they know the facts, you're indoctrinating them into your way of thinking. That's what creates the vote blues. That's what creates the crazy, uninformed right wing. That's what happens. And so I'm not there to tell my kids Hillary's a piece of shit and CNN sucks. I'm not there to tell my kids Donald is a racist piece of shit and we're fucked. I'm not. one student right now who's both of his parents are in Mexico, and he told me a couple of days ago before the election, Miss, I'm not going to college. He's one of my top students. And I was like, what do you mean you're not going to college? He goes, Miss, it's personal. So I pull him outside and I go, look, I don't know you very long. I don't want to pry. If you're willing to tell me, please. There's a million things that we can do, because I'm assuming they're undocumented or something and we can make it work, and they're in New York and, whatever. So I gave him a couple of scenarios and we talked about it. I said, listen, take a day, think about it, let me know if you change your mind. He found me later that day and he goes, Miss, I want to talk about it. I said, okay. He goes, the reason I'm not going to college is because my mom and dad are in Mexico, and, my dad has a bad leg and my mom is sick and they don't have anybody to help them. I want to go help them. So I said, look, I hear you, send them money. Everybody does that. Like, it's just, my mom and dad used to do that when they first came, right? Like, everybody does that. You go and you send your family money because you want best for them too, but you don't sacrifice yourself. And they're his parents, and I get that he wants to. And so he was like, well, but he's fixing the house and his leg, he can't really do it. And in my head, I don't want to say they're going to die before you and then you're fucked. Like, they're going to die before you, and then what are you going to do, right? So I tell him, how about Arizona? How about Texas? How about New Mexico? So you can spend summers with them and commute if they're sick, but you go to school right across the border. Like, how about we find some middle ground so you can go to college? So he was like, okay, I'll think about it, right? And then the election happened. What am I supposed to tell him? What am I supposed to say to him? There might be a wall. It's tough. And I'm not sorry Hillary lost. And I'm not happy Trump won. Those aren't victories to me at all. If anything, what I'm most happy for is that students are staging walkouts and that people are protesting. In my opinion, they're protesting against Trump instead of for something. And that's not going to work. But at least they're involved. Right? At least they're doing things. I doubt the wall too, Donald. Honestly, I don't think that's happening. But, that's a real fear for him, right? Like, for him, what if that happens? And we're both on this, it's like the fucking Berlin Wall. My family's on the other side of this cement piece of shit. Like, he doesn't get it. So, and yeah, Jay, that's what I'm saying. Like, hopefully the best we could hope for out of this election is that people are activated and they're lit up and ready to fight. I honestly hope that. And I see that things are happening. And I'm so proud of that. Here's what I want to say. If you're protesting, I am 100% with you. I personally do not condone any sort of violence or destruction of property. I don't. I don't care if it's government property. I just don't. If you're protesting, and I wish you would, I want to see you on January 20th and 21st in DC for Occupy inauguration. Like, I want to see that. But if you're protesting, stay nonviolent. Stay peaceful. The government doesn't know what to do with that. If nothing else, we're seeing that Dakota pipeline, right? Like, they're planting people with guns because they want an excuse to do something worse than they're already doing. They're already violating human rights. So I want you there to be with me. So when I'm fighting for my students, you're there. Because I'm fighting for my students and I'm fighting for every other kid in the world. Because guess what? Chances are, even though I'm Hispanic, a Trump presidency isn't going to affect me directly as much. I'm lucky. Right? My last name is Beatty because I'm married to a white guy. Like, I look white. I have light eyes. There's no conceivable reason I'm gonna be attacked by a bunch of people. I don't wear a hijab. Like, I'm lucky. And I'm in New York. So, personally, I am most likely safe. But our kids aren't. So we get to fight for them. Because, guys, honestly, if this doesn't wake you the fuck up, nothing will. If this doesn't make you go out on the streets and fucking create change, nothing will. We have to stand together. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care who you choose or who you love. I don't care. None of that is any of my business. But what is my business is that you're a human being and you do love and you have hopes and you have dreams. And who the fuck is any president, any candidate, any politician to tell you that you're not allowed those things? Because people in your religion happen to do some terrible things. People with the color of your skin happen to have done some type of things. People who love the same gender have things, right? Like, somebody else's fear doesn't get to define you or your life. But your fight is my fight. Despite the fact that I have light skin, despite the fact that I am not Muslim, despite the fact that I'm not gay. Because unless we fight for each other's fights with that same amount of passion, we're still divided. And I still have to walk into my kids' classrooms every single fucking day and tell them the world doesn't care enough to make it different. Not the world didn't care enough to not vote for the xenophobe. I don't give a shit. He's just one fucking man. But the world didn't give a shit enough to stand up and stop put a halt to the fucking American economy. Stop buying shit. Stop using the mainstream banks. Stop driving and using the gasoline. Stop consuming shit that the American government feeds off of. Stop using corporate entities. Buy local. Do things that are going to start to make an actual difference. Because the only thing that matters to these motherfuckers is their bottom line. So hurt the goddamn bottom line. Don't hurt the property. Who gives a shit about the goddamn property? They'll just pay it off. If you don't know already, on November 11th, we're all boycotting gas. So, start there. If you have accounts with Chase, with Citibank, with any of the Dakota Pipeline funders, cut it. Get a credit union. Do these things not because we're protesting, but because we see a better future for our children. Because my students get to know that they matter and their voice counts. So, it was tough for me today. And it was tough for me yesterday walking in, facing them and letting them know, yeah, I voted third party. Yeah. And having them judge that and have opinions. But I wanted them informed. And I didn't want them asleep for as long as I was asleep. And I wanted them next to me fighting at Occupy Inauguration and boycotting gas and all of the other things that we're doing. And obviously, I can't tell them to do these things because I'm a teacher and it's just a conflict of interest. But what I can do is tell them, get informed. I can tell them, Google activism. Google how to protest. Google how to change the system. Look up progressive forms of media instead of CNN. See if they have the same opinions or if they have different opinions. And if they have different opinions, what makes those opinions different? And then verify the sources on your own. Don't just listen to what either one is saying. Those are things I can do for me, for my kids. 200 kids between the juniors and the seniors in my charge. And those are the things I can do. And now I'm asking you, what are you going to do?